All right, so good morning. Happy Wednesday. We have a couple days until the weekend. I'm so sure you guys are excited for that. So today we are on episode 8, and it is called Different Scales, Scripts, and Scenes. So today we are going to talk about weaknesses and how they sometimes our strengths become our weaknesses. Got that, rewind. So, if we're reading for the first time, my name is Brianna Anninger, and I am passionate about empowering and inspiring people just like you to truly wake up and live. So, good morning, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining. So, if you are joining us live, go ahead and comment 1. And if you are joining us on the replay, go ahead and comment 2. So if you are excited to find out how your strengths are your weaknesses, go ahead and give me some thumbs up or some hearts. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm super excited to share this with you. I'm excited every day to share with you guys. So when our strengths become our weaknesses, so if you can remember back when you first met your spouse, there must have been something that attracted you to them. And usually that is their strength, okay? So there's a list here in the book of all the strengths and weaknesses. And for time, I picked 2 of each one. And after the video, I'll go ahead and take a picture and post in the comments so you can look at it. So what the book recommends is that we first identify our strengths and our weaknesses. So this is very important to sit down with your spouse with this list and kind of figure out which ones that are your strengths and then what would be a weakness. And when you have that communication with your spouse or whoever you're in the relationship with, there becomes this awareness. And what I learned in this chapter is a lot of times that when we get into a relationship, we feel that that person is coming at us, right? That when our maybe not so good side kind of comes out, instead of us being the one to be like, okay, take responsibility for it, we kind of want to turn it around on our spouse and say like, no, that's their problem, right? I know I could relate to that one. That was kind of like a dagger in the heart, right? But when we identify what it could be, that is when we grow. And I know that a lot of you on here want to grow, and that's why you're tuning into this broadcast, because you want to improve yourself. You want to have that personal development, because when we develop ourselves, then our relationships thrive, okay? So what could be our strengths and our weaknesses? So first we're going to talk about the sanguine. So one of the strengths is that friendly nature could be interpreted for their weakness as they talk to anyone. So going back to, again, remember Mike is that sanguine phlegmatic and I'm that melancholic choleric. So for me, with him talking to everyone, sometimes it makes me feel uneasy, right? Because of my personality of being a little bit more quiet, more introverted. So that is something that drew me to Mike because of, it was funny, a side note with you guys, that we were a long distance relationship before. And so when we were on Skype, I loved it because he was the talker. I didn't have to talk. I didn't have to share my feelings. Like, I just sat there and I just was like, oh, okay, I just get to be pretty, right? And but what ended up happening when we got married, Mike just talk, and it annoyed me, okay? And I was like, gosh, like, he's talking so much, like, I can't even get an edge of words and, like, to say anything that I want to say, because he would just keep talking. And so what ended up happening was that the thing that drew me the most to him, well, there was a lot of other things, but, you know, one of them was of his personality, of him being more outgoing. I started to become almost like resentful. And so we had to sit down and we had to have our conversation that it was like, look, like, I know that you love to talk, but I like to kind of talk and share my feelings too, you know? And he wasn't aware. He didn't know. So that was one of the things that, you know, if they have a friendly nature and talk to anyone, that could be a weakness, okay? And one of the other ones of a saying, when unworried or unhurried, they're late for everything, okay? So who here has either a spouse or friends or something that it's like they're late to everything, right? So a person like me, the melancholic, that when people are late, it makes me feel like they're disrespecting my time, because everybody's time is precious, right? So it's so important that if you are that sanguine, unworried, and hurried, and always late for anything, that that you got to kind of think about it and be like, okay, how am I affecting other people? You know, if we have those spouses that maybe take a long time to get ready, and the other spouse is just sitting there waiting, so you can only imagine that they're getting annoyed. So for me, like, I have learned to get ready really fast. I never wanted to be that spouse that took hours to get ready and the spouse just sitting there waiting. So that's one of the things, you know, that to be aware of. Okay, so now the melancholic, that one of the strengths is being a deep thinker, and how that could be interpreted as won't talk. So that is very true to me, is sometimes that when like something happens or something, like I have to process it and I don't say anything. And so that can be interpreted as that, you know, I'm not listening or I'm ignoring. And if we go back to the phlegmatic that Mike is, remember, words of affirmation is very important. Being accepted, having that significant is important. So if I am thinking very deeply and I'm not talking, then that's being interpreted as that, you know, I'm not listening. So even though deep thinking is a great strength of a melancholic, it can be that weakness of not talking, right? And then one of the strengths is being persistent. So that's a great strength of being persistent, right? But at the same time, that can be interpreted as won't give up. So you kind of think for a second, well, not giving up is something that's good, right? Well, in different contexts, it's not. Because sometimes, in this kind of, I feel like that could kind of go with the choleric too, is that when you know you're wrong, okay, but you're persistent to win the argument, which we should never want to win the argument. We always want to have the strive to be that goal of understanding, okay? But sometimes with that persistent is that you won't give up, where you won't sway no matter what. And this is one of the things that Mike talks to me about, is that sometimes I'll get an idea in my head and I just won't listen to anybody. Like, I'm just like, nope, that's how it's gonna go, and I'm not gonna sway. So that's the thing, is that it's great that I'm persistent, but at the same time that I won't give up, so I'm not open-minded. So that is one thing that, like, Mike has sat down and talked to me about, that I've been working on, is like trying to be more open-minded, that when he brings new information to the table, that I don't just shut him down, that I listen to him and be like, okay, I can see your perspective, and, you know, and have that, again, what? Communication. That's what this whole book is about, communication. Okay, choleric. So the strength is being self-reliant, and then a weakness is doesn't need you. So I know probably a lot of people can relate to that one, is that being self-reliant is a great strength, because you're a go-getter, you know, and you are like, you have great confidence that you can accomplish certain tasks, which is great. But in a relationship, your spouse needs to feel that you need them. When you get in that self-reliant type of mentality, it pushes your spouse away, and it can create a lot of division, a lot of miscommunication. So it's really important to, you know, figure out your personality and figure out your spouse's personality, and figure out that, like, when you do act that self-reliant and you act like that you don't need that need your spouse, it can cause a lot of problems. Okay? Good morning, Trinity. Thank you so much for joining. And okay, so then we have our next strength is straight talk. I think that's totally me. I have to work so hard on this, okay, you guys, is that I'm very direct, and I've tried to learn to kind of soften, I guess, my blow, right? When I like have a strong opinion and I say something, I don't process it and think like, okay, how is this going to affect this person, listening? It's like sometimes something just comes in my mind and I'm just like, this person needs to hear this, with my choleric, right? So what it can be as a weakness is insulting, okay? And so that is really important, especially when you are talking to your spouse, that if there's a situation that is going on between you guys, and I don't know what kind of example would be, but that, that you have something that you want to share, but at the same time, it comes off as very much of like you're putting them down, okay? And that is really unhealthy for a relationship. We want to build each other up. We want to communicate. We want to get that understanding, right? So that is really important, is that the insults, because what those insults can do is it can build that resentment. And what happens with unresolved resentment is a lot of anger, right? And then maybe there's some things that happen in the relationship that, really shouldn't have happened to begin with. And then ultimately people end in divorce. And you guys, we don't want that. That's why this whole series is that we want to build a strong marriage and relationship. And we just truly want to just have a great time with each other, like life is so short, and it's like, why dwell on all the negative? Let's build each other up. Let's be that change in the world, right? And so at the same time, is instead of being that statistic of that divorce, let's figure out how to improve that and bring that statistic down, right? And have more successful marriages and relationships, okay? So, okay, now, thank you so much for sticking with me. I know this is kind of a long one, but I feel like it's pretty important to kind of go through them just to get you guys to understand, between the strengths and how that strength can be interpreted as a weakness. So, phlegmatic. So we have our phlegmatic on here. Okay, so easygoing. So great, right? A strength is easygoing, get along with everybody. But at the same time, that can be about your weakness being lazy. And I know a lot of people with spouses that are phlegmatic, that, being easygoing and feeling that laziness is not great, right? So being self-aware that when they have that easygoing personality, that they still take that initiative to do things maybe around the house, or just have the communication with your spouse to let them know like that, hey, this is very important to me for you to do this. Can you please do this? And just, again, have that communication. And then this one I feel like was an important one, was that smiles and nods can be interpreted as doesn't hear a word. So who has been in a conversation that literally is like, and you're like, okay, is it going out one ear or the other? Are they listening? Are they, thinking, like, what's going on, right? So want to make sure that when we're smiling and nodding, it's a great trait, because I saw this video that we have been conditioned in our society to give that body language, right? That we're saying, we're smiling, we're nodding, we are being, trying to be there in the moment with our spouse or with whoever we're talking to. But what ends up happening, which this is very interesting, but you guys didn't realize this, is that when you are focusing on smiling and nodding, your mind is focusing on, okay, I have to smile, I have to nod, that you're not listening, because you're focusing so much of like that body language. So instead, make sure that when you're in that moment talking to somebody, that you can smile and nod, but do it naturally and not in a way of like thinking, okay, I have to smile, I have to nod, okay? So those are some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses. And the other couple things that I wanted to share with you guys is that we don't want to fix things, okay? A lot of times, and I especially would say that the husbands do this, is that they want to fix all our problems, right, for our spouses. And I mean, sometimes the wives do this too with the husbands, but I think I've seen it more with the husbands because they are more, I believe, they grow up to be that fixer, right? That they don't want to see their spouse hurt. They want to just fix the problem right away. But what ends up happening is when we do this is that we don't let our spouse grow because of them just getting the problem fixed, right? And the example of that they gave in the book was that there was this sanguine, her name was Shirley, and that she developed a dental disorder of TMJ. So she was in a great deal of pain and discomfort. And her husband, he was a choleric, his name is Nate, and he came home and he was like, what's going on? Like asking 20 questions. So I'm sure that you guys can relate if you're in a lot of pain or discomfort that you don't want a lot of people asking you a lot of questions. You just want probably that, especially if you're a sanguine, you just want to be comforted, right? And so she was basically saying like, I don't want you to ask me, I don't care about all these questions. All I need is for you to take me to bed, offer me soda and crackers, and put your arm around me and say, I'm sorry you're in pain. Is there anything I can do to help? So he did just that. And what ended up happening was that she felt loved. You know, she felt that he gave her what she needed. She just needed to, you know, for him to tuck her into bed and just say, it's, you know, are you okay? Like, what can I do for you? Right? And so the book was just talking about is that instead of trying to fix things right away, ask your spouse, like, what do you need? You know, in this moment, Mike is really good at this, is that he asked me that a lot, and that's something that I need to work on myself, is to ask him, like, what do you need, you know, to make this better? So that was kind of important. And then the last thing is that growing together, okay, is that when we identify our weaknesses and we communicate our weaknesses and our strengths, and that we don't try to fix them, and it helps us grow together, okay? And it helps us build each other up rather than tear each other down. And it also helps us know that our spouse isn't out to get us. I think that's one of the most important things in this whole broadcast. I want to give that message to you guys, is that your spouse isn't out there to get you, okay? They're out there to help you grow, to help you push into your courageous zone, okay? And for you to just be more self-aware, because some of the issues that maybe you have with your spouse, you might have with other relationships outside, like your friends. It could be your mother, it could be your father, it could be your brother, it could be your sister, because the things of our personality, it kind of correlates with everything in our life. Okay, so our spouse is there to help us because they're that person to be that sound wall, to really be that encouragement, and to lovingly tell you, okay, this might be something that you need to work on. And when we are open-minded, then our relationships really do become successful and we grow so much. And that truly is what I want to help you guys, is to win in life and win in your relationship. So I hope that this broadcast was helpful to you. If it was, share it with somebody that you maybe thought in your head when you were listening to this. Maybe share it with your spouse. And I hope you guys have a great day. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And we are going to talk about in the same key. Wonder what that could mean. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.